first of all. I've been deployed 3 times to different war zones. I don't want to be in a foxhole next to somebody who doesn't want to be.
Tulsi Gabbard has always been a fascinating figure. From being the first Hindu American in Congress to running for president, she's never shied away from the spotlight. But while her public life has often made headlines, her private life has remained a mystery, until now. Recently, Tulsi opened up about a deeply personal chapter in her life, the reason behind her first divorce. It's a side of her story that many never expected to hear. So what really happened? Why did her first marriage to Eduardo Tamayo come to an end? Join us as we dive into her journey, from her personal life to her career, and find out what really happened and what is she up to nowadays. The early years of Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard's journey began on April 12, 1981 in Laloaloa, American Samoa. She was the fourth of 5 children in a family that embraced both European and Samoan roots. Her father, Mike Gabbard, hailed from American Samoa, while her mother, Carol, had her origins in Indiana. In 1983, the family relocated to Hawaii, a place that would play a significant role in shaping Tulsi's life and values. Raised in a multicultural and spiritual household, Tulsi grew up immersed in the teachings of Hinduism. Her mother, inspired by Hindu principles, gave her the name Tulsi, which means holy basil in Sanskrit, a sacred plant in Hindu culture. Speaking of which, Tulsi's upbringing wasn't just spiritual, it was dynamic. Her childhood included surfing, martial arts, and yoga, giving her a strong sense of discipline and connection to nature. She also studied texts like the Bhagavad Gita, which deeply influenced her understanding of life and leadership. And just like that, Tulsi's education was also unique. She was homeschooled for much of her early life, but also spent 2 years at a boarding school in the Philippines, run by a Hindu organization. This experience solidified her faith and gave her a global perspective at a young age. It was clear from her early years that Tulsi wasn't one to follow a traditional path. Tulsi's foray into leadership. Tulsi's leadership journey began in her late teens. After high school, she worked with several organizations, including Stand Up for America, founded by her father after the 9/11 attacks. She also contributed to the Healthy Hawaii Coalition, focusing on environmental protection. But it wasn't long before she sought to make an even greater impact. At just 21 years old, Tulsi took a bold step and ran for the Hawaii House of Representatives. Dropping out of Leeward Community College, where she was studying television production, she became the youngest woman ever elected to a U.S. state legislature. Her early political career reflected her commitment to community values, although it wasn't without controversy. During this time, she worked with her father's organization, the Alliance for Traditional Marriage and Values, which supported a constitutional amendment opposing same-sex marriage. While balancing politics, Tulsi pursued her education and in 2009 earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Hawaii Pacific University. Her concentration in international business hinted at her growing interest in global affairs. But did you know that Tulsi's desire to serve extended beyond politics? A military career built on service. In 2003, she enlisted in the Hawaii Army National Guard while still serving as a state representative. By 2004, she was deployed to Iraq for a year, working as a specialist with the medical company of the 29th Support Battalion. Her role during this time earned her respect and recognition for her dedication to the troops. After returning from Iraq, Tulsi chose not to seek re-election, prioritizing her military service. She completed Officer Candidate School in 2007, graduating as the top student in her class. This achievement made her the first woman to receive this honor from the Alabama Military Academy. She was commissioned as a second lieutenant and continued serving with distinction, including a deployment to Kuwait in 2008 to 2009. But Tulsi's military service didn't go unnoticed. She received several awards, including the Combat Medical Badge and the Meritorious Service Medal. In 2015, she was promoted to the rank of Major and later transferred to a California-based Army Reserve unit in 2020. Her dedication culminated in a promotion to Lieutenant Colonel in 2021 while deployed in Africa. From her unique upbringing to her groundbreaking roles in politics and the military, every step she's taken reflects her commitment to making a difference. Speaking of which, what has her political career been like from the very start? breaking barriers in Hawaii's political landscape. Tulsi Gabbard's political journey began in 2002 when she decided to run for the Hawaii House of Representatives. At just 21 years old, she became the youngest legislator in Hawaii's history, and at the time, the youngest woman elected to a U.S. state legislature. Her campaign was a success, as she won the Democratic primary with 43% of the vote and later defeated her Republican opponent with over 60% of the votes. During her term, Tulsi was vocal and active, especially on issues like same-sex marriage. She strongly opposed a state bill that sought to legalize same-sex civil unions, even leading protests against it. Her stance aligned with the federal marriage amendment, which aimed to give states control over marriage laws. Though controversial, her position reflected her dedication to what she believed her constituents wanted. But her political career took a pause in 2004 when she volunteered for Army National Guard service in Iraq. While Tulsi initially filed for re-election, she later chose not to campaign, stating that her commitment to serve overshadowed her political ambitions at the time. Despite this, her name remained on the ballot, but her opponent, Rita Cabanilla, won the primary. After returning from her second Middle East deployment in 2009, Tulsi shifted her focus to local politics. In 2010, she ran for a seat on the Honolulu City Council. The election was competitive, with 10 candidates vying for the position. Tulsi managed to stand out, securing first place in the primary. In the runoff, she defeated her opponent, Sesnita Moapono, to win the seat. As a council member, Tulsi worked on practical issues that directly impacted Honolulu residents. She introduced measures like loosening parking restrictions for food trucks, supporting small businesses in the city. Another significant initiative was Bill 54, which authorized city workers to remove personal belongings left on public property after giving a 24-hour notice. While the bill faced opposition from groups like the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, and Occupy Hawaii, it eventually passed and became City Ordinance 1129. Tulsi's time on the city council allowed her to connect deeply with her community and address pressing local concerns. But soon, bigger opportunities awaited her, making history in Congress. In 2011, Tulsi announced her candidacy for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District after the seat was vacated by Mazie Hirono. Despite facing tough competition, including the well-known Democratic Mayor Mufi Hannemann, Tulsi's campaign gained momentum. Her story as a military veteran and fresh face in politics resonated with voters. She won the Democratic primary with 55% of the vote and went on to dominate the general election, earning over 80% of the votes. Tulsi's victory was historic. She became the first Hindu member of Congress and the first Samoan American voting member. At the Democratic National Convention that year, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi introduced her as an emerging star. Tulsi used her platform to bring attention to issues affecting veterans and military families. Her first legislative success was the Helping Heroes Fly Act, which improved airport security screenings for severely wounded veterans. This bill, signed into law by President Barack Obama, demonstrated Tulsi's commitment to serving those who had served their country. Throughout her time in Congress, Tulsi continued to push for meaningful legislation. In her second term, she co-sponsored a bill with Senator Hirono to award the Congressional Gold Medal to Filipino veterans of World War II, which was signed into law in 2016. She also introduced Talia's Law, aimed at preventing child abuse and neglect on military bases. Like her earlier efforts, this too became law, showing her ability to turn ideas into action, championing bold causes in later congressional terms. As Tulsi settled into her role in Congress, she began advocating for more ambitious causes. In her third term, she introduced the Off Fossil Fuels Act, OFF Act, a bold proposal to transition the U.S. to 100% clean energy by 2035. She also tackled election security by introducing the Securing America's Elections Act, which called for paper ballots to ensure transparency and trust in voting. This effort was praised by Common Cause, a nonpartisan watchdog group. Her fourth term saw her taking on even more challenging issues. Tulsi co-sponsored the No More Presidential Wars Act with Representative Walter Jones. This legislation aimed to reaffirm Congress's authority to declare war, putting a check on presidential powers. She also introduced bills to drop charges against whistleblowers Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, further emphasizing her focus on transparency and accountability in governance. In 2019, Tulsi announced she would not seek re-election, choosing instead to focus on her presidential campaign. Her time in Congress was marked by legislative achievements, bold initiatives, and a willingness to stand for her beliefs, even when they challenged the status quo. As Tulsi moved onto the national stage, her legacy as a trailblazer in Hawaii's and America's political landscape was firmly established. The historic launch of a presidential campaign. In February 2019, Tulsi Gabbard officially entered the race for the 2020 presidential election. As the first female combat veteran to run for president, her campaign carried a unique and powerful message. Her platform focused on foreign policy that opposed interventionist wars and economic ideas that appealed to populist ideals. This combination quickly captured attention, and she became a topic of curiosity and discussion. Tulsi stood out in debates, often earning the title of the most Googled candidate after the first, second, and fourth Democratic debates. However, her path wasn't without challenges. She didn't qualify for the third debate, prompting her to accuse the Democratic National Committee of unclear and unfair qualification criteria. Despite this, she returned for the fourth debate, though not without controversy. Tulsi accused the media and the Democratic Party of rigging the election process and even considered boycotting the debate. Ultimately, she chose to participate, continuing her fight to bring her anti-establishment voice to the campaign stage. But her campaign wasn't just about debates. In July 2019, Tulsi became the only candidate to visit Puerto Rico during protests against Governor Ricardo Rossello, showing her commitment to addressing pressing social issues. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton accused Tulsi of being groomed by Republicans and even hinted at Russian support. Tulsi denied these claims and filed a defamation lawsuit against Clinton in January 2020, though she dropped it months later, citing shifting priorities in a post-pandemic world. Speaking of which, Tulsi's campaign faced its share of controversies. Controversies and criticism in her campaign journey. Endorsements from figures like David Duke and Richard Spencer were quickly disavowed, but they added to the scrutiny surrounding her candidacy. Despite these hurdles, Tulsi made history again on March 3, 2020, when she secured 2 delegates in American Samoa. This achievement marked her as the second woman of color and the first Asian American and Pacific Islander candidate to earn primary delegates. Tulsi's presidential run came to an end on March 19, 2020, when she dropped out of the race and endorsed Joe Biden. Her campaign left a unique mark on the election cycle, with her being the only non-white Democratic candidate to earn delegates. However, her exit wasn't the end of her political journey. Notably, Tulsi wasn't invited to the 2020 Democratic National Convention, a decision that left many questioning the party's stance on inclusion. After stepping back from the campaign, Tulsi remained active in public life. In May 2020, she endorsed Isaac Wilson, a Democratic candidate in South Carolina, though he lost the election. She also made headlines when she supported the family of Vanessa Guillén, a soldier and victim of military harassment who was murdered. Tulsi stood in solidarity with Guillén's family, using her voice as a veteran to call for systemic change within the military. During the pandemic, Tulsi became an outspoken critic of Hawaii's Department of Health. She supported whistleblowers like Dr. Jennifer Smith, who raised concerns about inadequate contact tracing efforts. Tulsi called for leadership changes in the state's health department, even as Smith faced backlash for speaking out. This episode highlighted Tulsi's willingness to challenge authority and stand by individuals fighting for accountability. In 2020, Tulsi also turned her focus to cultural issues. She criticized Netflix for promoting the controversial film Cuties, accusing the platform of fueling child exploitation. Later, she created the Tulsi Aloha PAC, which aimed to support political candidates and pay off legal expenses from her defamation lawsuit against Hillary Clinton. A political shift and new alliances. In October 2022, Tulsi announced her departure from the Democratic Party, citing concerns over the party's direction. She accused its leadership of cowardly wokeness and hostility toward people of faith. Shortly after, she began endorsing Republican candidates supported by Donald Trump, signaling a significant political shift. Now, Tulsi's break from the Democratic Party wasn't the only change. She became a frequent presence on Fox News, hosting shows like Tucker Carlson Tonight and later signing on as a paid contributor. Her appearances often sparked debate, as she voiced strong opinions on divisive issues like Florida's parental rights bill. By 2024, Tulsi had fully aligned herself with the Republican Party. At CPAC, she hinted at the possibility of being Trump's running mate, a role she publicly embraced in interviews. In August 2024, she endorsed Trump's re-election bid and was named an honorary co-chair of his presidential transition team. In October of this year, Tulsi officially joined the Republican Party, solidifying her transformation from Democratic outsider to a prominent figure in conservative politics. Her appointment as Director of National Intelligence in Trump's administration stirred mixed reactions. While some praised her military background and independent thinking, critics pointed to her controversial foreign policy views and lack of experience in intelligence. Tulsi's journey from Democratic rising star to Republican ally showcases her willingness to challenge norms and embrace change no matter the criticism. And speaking of that, what about her personal life that too made headlines? Tulsi Gabbard's personal life. Tulsi Gabbard's journey isn't just about politics and public service. Her personal life has always sparked interest, from her childhood shaped by Hindu values to her 2 marriages, each with its unique story. Born and raised in Hawaii, Tulsi embraced a lifestyle that mirrored the island's natural beauty and laid-back culture. She grew up surfing, practicing yoga, and following the principles of the Bhagavad Gita, which guided her deeply held spiritual beliefs. Now, did you know that Tulsi is a vegetarian? Some sources even claim she's vegan and describes herself as a karma yogi, someone who believes in selfless action. Her spiritual journey has remained central to her life, and she even took her oath of office in 2013 using her personal copy of the Gita. Later, as a congresswoman, Tulsi actively celebrated her faith. She supported campaigns for a U.S. stamp commemorating Diwali, the Indian Festival of Lights, emphasizing its universal values of righteousness and togetherness. This blend of her spiritual upbringing and public service has always set her apart, but her personal relationships have also attracted significant attention. First marriage that ended with heartache. Tulsi's first marriage to Eduardo Tamayo, her childhood sweetheart, was a chapter filled with love, but also challenges. The two were best friends growing up, and their families were closely connected. In 2002, they tied the knot, and Tulsi even took Tamayo's last name for a few years. However, their relationship faced a tough test when Tulsi was deployed to Iraq for 18 months. The strain of war and distance took a toll on their marriage, as it often does for many military families. And so, in 2006, they divorced, and Tulsi later described their story as another sad example of how military life can create immense pressure on relationships. She shared her heartbreak in a note saying, "Eddie and I became another statistic, another sad story, illustrating the stresses war places on military spouses and families." Despite the end of their marriage, Tulsi maintained a warm relationship with the Tamayo family. She decided to go back to her maiden name, explaining that she had held on to Tamayo's name in the hopes of reconciliation. Sadly, that didn't happen, but she remained grateful for the bond she shared with his family. A second chance at love. Years later, Tulsi found love again, this time with Abraham Williams, a cinematographer and part-time surfer. Their love story began in 2012 when Williams volunteered to help with her campaign commercials as she ran for U.S. Representative of Hawaii. At first, their relationship was purely professional, but about a year after she took office, Abraham asked her out. Their connection was immediate. Tulsi described their first date as relaxed and natural, filled with easy conversation and a growing realization that they shared much in common. Speaking about him, Tulsi shared, "He's incredibly optimistic and positive, so I could go on and on. I just feel grateful because I get to marry a wonderful person who's also my best friend." Abraham's proposal was as creative as their bond. He popped the question during an evening surfing date on the south shore of Hawaii. Tulsi was initially confused by his urgency, as they had been stuck in traffic. But once they hit the waves, Abraham pulled out a gold duct tape-covered flotation device with a beautiful ring attached and asked, "Will you marry me?" It was an unforgettable moment that sealed their love story. And so in 2015, Tulsi and Abraham tied the knot in a spiritual Hindu ceremony in Oahu, blending their shared love for Hawaii and Tulsi's Hindu faith. The wedding incorporated traditional elements from the Vedas, with parts of the ceremony in Sanskrit and English. But true to their roots, the event also had a Hawaiian twist. Tulsi described it as a celebration of prayers, singing, and dancing, a joyous occasion that reflected their vibrant personalities. Speaking of which, the couple wrote their own vows, adding a personal touch to the ceremony. Tulsi shared how grateful she was to marry someone who shared her values and outlook on life. Abraham, with his part Maori and part Samoan heritage, brought his own cultural richness to their union, creating a beautiful blend of traditions. Since their marriage, Tulsi and Abraham have supported each other through life's ups and downs. While the couple doesn't have children, Tulsi once shared that they underwent IVF treatments, but decided to discontinue them during her 2020 presidential campaign. Their bond remains strong, built on mutual respect, shared passions, and a deep understanding of one another's dreams. Their personal life may reflect love and mutual support, but Tulsi Gabbard's public life has been anything but smooth. As she navigates her high-profile career, her associations and past connections have sparked intense scrutiny. One such controversy revolves around her ties to a religious group, the Science of Identity Foundation, which has raised many questions in light of her recent nomination. Tulsi Gabbard's controversial ties. Tulsi Gabbard's nomination as Director of National Intelligence by President-elect Donald Trump has stirred up significant controversy. Much of the scrutiny stems from her past association with the Science of Identity Foundation, SIF, a religious group many critics label as a cult. Led by Chris Butler, who is seen as a deity by his followers, CF has a history of promoting views that some find troubling, especially regarding LGBTQ issues and women. Concerns about these connections aren't new but have gained fresh attention with her nomination. Even members of her own family, including her aunt, have expressed alarm over her alignment with Butler and his influence. The criticisms aren't limited to family. Figures across the political spectrum are raising questions. According to the Daily Beast, even former National Security Advisor John Bolton called her nomination potentially the worst cabinet-level appointment in history. Adding to the controversy are Gabbard's perceived sympathies toward authoritarian leaders and her past associations with controversial figures. These issues have worried intelligence professionals, who question her qualifications for the role. While Republicans hold the Senate majority, even some within the party are reportedly hesitant about confirming her. It's not just her ties to Butler, but also her ideological leanings that are raising eyebrows, complicating what is expected to be a heated confirmation process. Despite the doubts surrounding her confirmation, Tulsi Gabbard has shown an uncanny ability to navigate controversy and redefine herself. From her bold political shifts to her evolving public persona, she continues to captivate attention, even in ways you might not expect. Barefaced confidence and public perception. Tulsi Gabbard is no stranger to controversy, but she has also mastered the art of transforming her public image. Once a Democratic congresswoman representing Hawaii, she made headlines for breaking with her party in dramatic fashion. Gabbard's decision to leave the Democrats, embrace Trump, and later be considered for his VP running mate reflects her ability to reinvent herself. But it's her personal appearance that sometimes sparks unexpected conversations. Known for her minimal makeup and natural look, Tulsi often opts for a polished but understated style during public appearances. However, fans have seen a different side of her when she's off the stage. During military exercises in 2023, she shared photos on Instagram of herself training alongside fellow soldiers, completely makeup-free. At 43, Tulsi's ability to keep up with the troops was impressive, but what stood out to many was her bare-faced appearance. In these photos, Tulsi looked notably different from her public image. Without makeup, her face appeared more monochromatic, a stark contrast to the polished look she typically presents at events. While her usual routine of subtle mascara and blush enhances her features, these raw images showed a woman unafraid to embrace her natural self. It's a side of Tulsi that fans admired, especially as she tackled strenuous physical activities. This combination of controversy and relatability makes Tulsi Gabbard a fascinating figure. Whether it's her ties to polarizing figures or her candid, makeup-free moments, she continues to attract both criticism and admiration in equal measure. Tulsi Gabbard's fight for reform and a sustainable future. Tulsi Gabbard has been a vocal critic of the criminal justice system, which she describes as broken and unfair. She has pointed out the hypocrisy of putting people in prison for marijuana use while allowing pharmaceutical companies responsible for the opioid crisis to escape justice. As president, she promised to end the failed war on drugs, legalize marijuana, eliminate cash bail, and ban private prisons. Her legislative efforts reflect her stance. She introduced the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act and the MORE Act, both aimed at changing how marijuana is treated under federal law. These bills focus on decriminalization and reinvestment in communities affected by drug-related arrests. Tulsi even called for the legalization and regulation of all drugs, inspired by Portugal's model, which focuses on decriminalization and public health. In 2020, she pushed for a new amendment to allow armed services members to use CBD and hemp products. Although it was approved as part of a larger package, it didn't make it into the final bill. This setback didn't dampen her determination, as she continues to challenge outdated drug policies. When it comes to immigration, Tulsi's views are a mix of security and opportunity. In 2015, she supported increased border security and stricter vetting for Iraqi and Syrian refugees. She also proposed halting the visa waiver program to address the potential risks of terrorism. However, her immigration policies are not all restrictive. Tulsi has consistently supported pathways to citizenship, more opportunities for skilled immigrants, and granting work visas to those without legal status. By 2022, she showed openness to the idea of a border wall, but only if experts deemed it necessary. Tulsi's environmental efforts showcase her commitment to Native American rights and sustainable energy. She supported the Standing Rock Sioux tribe during their protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline in 2016, co-signing a letter urging the Obama administration to address tribal concerns. In another notable achievement, she passed an amendment requiring the Department of Energy to reassess the safety of the Runit Dome, a Cold War-era nuclear waste site leaking in the Marshall Islands. She called for fresh eyes to ensure the situation was handled independently and safely. Speaking of which, did you know that Tulsi has voiced support for a Green New Deal, but has also raised concerns about certain versions of the proposal, particularly those including nuclear energy? Instead, she championed her own legislation, the Off Fossil Fuels for a Better Future Act, which outlines a clear path to transitioning the U.S. to renewable energy. Now, did you know that Tulsi Gabbard and her husband recently made a move to Leander, Texas, purchasing a cozy single-story home? The house, bought for about $675,000, offers 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and plenty of charm. What makes it even more special is its location. Nestled in a quiet cul-de-sac, surrounded by 3 acres of land. This serene setting seems like the perfect retreat for the couple after their busy public lives. And in the end, Tulsi's personal life, much like her career, is a testament to resilience, faith, and love. It shows how she has faced challenges head-on, embraced change, and found strength in her relationships and beliefs. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more updates on fascinating stories and insights into the lives of influential figures.